architectures and paradigm shifts. To start off with, a thank you to our sponsors. And on the agenda, we have two things: paradigm shifts and architectures, all about having data on the cloud. Now, before we start, how many of you have worked with Azure, at least for about 3-4 months? Okay. How many of you have worked with data on Azure? Okay, so of those who have worked with Azure, it's mostly development. Am I right? Okay. And those who have not worked with Azure, I'm sure you have heard about Azure, right? How many of you all wish that you worked on Azure if you haven't worked with Azure? No? So you're comfortable working with on-premise stuff? Okay, that's all right. So we'll see what these paradigm shifts are when you move data to the cloud. Okay, say we go to work, right, on a daily basis. You go to work, you take a bus, you take a train, you might take the car and things like that. Now, this same thing that you do on a daily basis, take it and you go abroad. So you migrate. So when you migrate, you'll be doing the same thing, right? Working for an IT company, doing some IT work. But things that you do on a daily basis, like going to work, is again, you might take the bus, you might take a train. But then a lot of things about this change. The way the buses work over there is different. The way you go to work is different. When in Sri Lanka, it's always sunny or sometimes rainy, but it never gets really cold. Right? But then when you're abroad, like in a place like Canada or certain times in Australia, it gets really cold, so you need to get ready for that. Right? And the work culture is much different. I've heard in Australia, people finish work at 4 o'clock on Fridays and go have a beer every Friday. Whereas here, we hardly do that. Okay, so you're doing the same thing, but the way you do things change when you migrate to another country. Okay, so that's a paradigm shift. The way you look at things, the way things happen, change, but you're doing more or less the same thing. Okay? Right. So the same thing also happens to you when you are working with data or when you're doing computing on the cloud, on Azure. There's a paradigm shift in the way you save data on the cloud, the way you work with data on the cloud, and so forth. It's not the same as working with data on premises. Okay? So once you shift to the cloud, onto Azure, if you are a person who's dealing with networks and administration, what you did in the first picture will become like what is there in the second picture. Because a lot of things are made easier. I know some of you even still work like this, even when you're doing on-premises. That's a different story. But then there's a paradigm shift because a lot of things that you do are made easier. We'll talk more about that as we go on. Right, so one of the things that change is this, cost. Now, when you're working with data on the cloud, or when you're working with anything on the cloud, how cost works is different. Okay, now if you're working on premises, let's say you are working, we are talking data here, okay, mostly data. So if you have a SQL server, if you're implementing a solution with a SQL Server database, you need to plan for it, say 3-4 years. You need to purchase hardware and software to last those 3-4 years. You need to plan for data and things like that. Okay, so cost comes in there. So there is something called a capital expenditure, or CapEx. So you need to invest a lot of money beforehand when you purchase a server and when you purchase software such as SQL Server licenses and so forth. Right? But when it comes to the cloud, it works much differently. There is a cost, but it works much differently. Okay, so on the cloud, you have a subscription-based model. So you don't own a server, you don't own software, but you subscribe for software. It's just like long time ago we had wells in our villages. We owned the wells, right? And we can we can draw out water as much as we want. But now we subscribe to the water service. We pay for what we use. So that is how it works on the cloud as well. Right? So when you give a solution, when you I'm not talking about coding something, but when you're giving a complete solution to a client, you need to look at cost differently. Okay. When it comes to on-premises, we had a lot of things for free. For example, if you're working with SQL Server, you had a SQL Server Developer Edition, which had everything for free. Okay, and you only had to purchase SQL Server for the production environment, such as the enterprise version, only when you put it onto production. But here on the cloud, even to do development work, you might get a few weeks of free trial, but then you will not have free forever. You'll have to pay for it. Okay, so even if you're going to do any R&D and things like that, you need to be ready to pay for it. And in most cases, it will be your organization. So cost works differently on the cloud, and you need to be very aware of that. And especially when you're giving costing to clients, it's a big headache when you are on Azure, because the principle of working on the cloud is you start small, you pay for what you use, and then you expand. Whereas on-premises, you first purchase, you spend a lot of money to get ready for the next 3-4 years. So you need to purchase things now. But on the cloud, you purchase or you use, you pay for what you use now, and then when you expand, you start paying more. Okay, so it's a very big paradigm shift when you're working with the cloud. If you are a developer, if you don't deal much with costs, you might not see that. But when it comes to giving a complete solution to a client, it's a very big thing that you need to consider. Okay. And then it's agile. A lot of things happen fast on the cloud. See, SQL Server, if I take it as another example, used to have releases of SQL Server every 2 years, sometimes 3 years. So you were comfortable working with one type of technology for 2-3 years. But on the cloud, things change very, very fast. Certain features that you don't see today on SQL database, you will see it in a couple of months' time. Okay, and those might be the features that you really wanted. Okay, so you need to be ready to accept these changes and move along with these changes. Because you cannot have, because on the cloud, technologies get updated. Okay, sometimes you will have to use those technologies to make your applications better. Okay, so you need to be ready to adopt these changes that happen to the technologies that is on Azure. Okay, so what's important is that you will be doing this, trying to catch up with the technologies. Okay, in a couple of months' time, you'll be doing this, trying to catch up with technologies. In another couple of months' time, you'll be doing this. And we keep on doing this over and over again, but that's a good thing. You learn a lot of things. Right? You can give better solutions to your clients. Okay? So that is another paradigm shift. You cannot get too comfortable working on Azure. We learned that the hard way. Okay. When we give, the organization that I work for, when we gave solutions to our clients a year ago, the set of technologies on Azure was different. And the technologies that we recommend and we propose for to clients now are completely different. It probably does the same thing, but in a much better way. So you need to be ready to adopt these changes. Okay. So learning is very important. And then comes the question of, is the cloud really secure? That's a question that we keep getting over and over again. A lot of people are not comfortable with putting their data on the cloud. Okay. One of the examples, or one of the ways we try to convince is that the US military uses Azure for their data. Of course, the US military's set of, their instances are much more secure, but you have a lot of security on the cloud. Okay, there is a white paper, and there is a dedicated Azure Security Center, which you can go and read, which gives you examples of different ways in which data is secured on Azure. And so you can rest assure your clients that, or you can tell your clients to rest assured that security is one of the utmost, one of the core principles on which Microsoft works on Azure. Okay, so if you take a look at this, the Trust Center and this documentation, you will see how at what different levels it is secured. It is secured at multiple levels more than what you have on premises. Okay, you have locally redundant storage. You have geo-redundant storage, which means copies of your data can be stored in multiple locations within a geographical area, and sometimes you can have it stored in multiple different locations. So in case one data center of Microsoft goes down, you still have data in a different region of the world. Okay, and all of those things come built in. It's just a flick of a switch on Azure. Then you can switch to GRS, which is geo-redundant storage. Okay, so that's another paradigm shift when it comes to moving to the cloud. And finally, we have managing and administering. So if you are an administrator, you spend a lot of time managing your hardware, a lot of time maintaining your networks, right? Switching hard disks, putting in new racks, a lot of things. And that stops you from doing a lot of valuable work. You don't have to worry about licensing, you don't have to worry about installing new hard disks. All of these things can be done very, very fast. Spinning up servers is a breeze, just a couple of minutes and you can have a server. If you want to upgrade your server, another couple of minutes. If you want to downgrade your server, another couple of minutes. You can set up entire networks within an hour. You can bring down an entire network and put up a new network instead. So use and throw away is another principle of the cloud on Azure. Okay, so you don't have to worry about how much do I have to spend on creating a server, how much I have to invest in licenses and all of that. Okay, and another thing that a lot of administrators, database administrators worry about is backups and also redundancy of keeping redundant copies of data and high availability and things like that. With Azure, most of these things are taken care of. When you set up an Azure SQL database, you can set up backup then in there itself, and backups will be taken automatically. You don't have to go and create your own backups and set up and schedule backups. So high availability is then a lot of things related to managing and administering data is inbuilt. Okay, so this allows you to give more value to your organization by doing what matters. By you can set up your policies and procedures and helping out the developers and other technology people of the organization. Okay. Because right, when you go to IT, what does IT mostly say? I'm too busy, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe in 3 weeks. So a lot of these nonsense can be cut out. Okay, right. And another worry that a lot of people have is losing their jobs. Because if Azure can do all of the things that I've been doing, is my job secure? Okay, the truth is, there is more and more jobs that have come up because of Azure. And most of these jobs give a lot of value to the organization. You know that most organizations hate to spend a lot of money on IT. Why is that? Because they don't see much value coming out of IT. Why? Because IT spends too much of time doing a lot of nonsense, a lot of things that they should not be doing, and Azure helps them with this. Okay. So this graph, you might not see it very clearly, but this shows in the UK job postings for Azure administrators. It's a 3-year period, broken down by months. That's why it's going up and down. But if you look at it from afar, the trend is going up. If you look at it from a yearly perspective, from a year perspective, it is going up. Okay. So those are some of the paradigm shifts. That is the paradigm shift that you will experience when you start working on the cloud on a regular basis. Okay. It allows you to be more productive, allows you to give more value to your organization. Okay. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is cost. You cannot just spin up servers and keep them running. They're going to use up a lot of your Azure credits or of your subscription, and your company might end up spending a lot of money on servers that have just been spun up and lying in Azure. So costing or money is very important, so you need to take care of that. That's one thing that you need to manage. For example, if you spin up a virtual machine, and if you shut down the virtual machine using the start shutdown option, and if the machine shuts down, it is still not properly shut down. Okay, it still costs money. Okay, to properly shut it down, you need to go to the Azure portal and click on stop. That's an example. If you don't do that, the server is still there, and it will cost your organization a lot of money. Okay. And another thing is Cosmos DB. A lot of you have heard about Cosmos DB, right? It is a globally distributed database system. Works in tenths of a second. Okay, and you can have data transfer from one instance to another second in less than a second. Okay, but Microsoft warns us that if you are using Cosmos DB, please consult them. Okay, the way you set up Cosmos DB, the way you use Cosmos DB will change Okay, and your costing can spike. Okay, so always make sure that when you're working with, especially with Cosmos DB, that you have contact with Microsoft. And now Microsoft is always there, unlike, like say, 5-10 years ago, they're always in contact with you. Okay, consult them before you start on Cosmos DB. The pricing is very tricky on that. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, let's take a look at some of the architectures that you can or that you have on Azure. Doing or setting up applications, developing applications, giving solutions, all sorts of solutions has been made much easier on Azure. There's a whole plethora of types of applications that can be given. And because you have a whole range of technologies on Azure, like you might have seen in the keynote. Okay, so I'll try to deal with data. So I will break this down in 2 sections. We have application development scenarios, and then you have data and analytics scenarios. Okay. When it comes to application development scenarios, there's nothing much here. This is one example of an architecture, and all of these architectures are Microsoft recommended architectures. We call them reference architectures. That means you don't just take it and then use it. You take it, refer it, and see if you can adapt it for your needs. Okay, so this is an example of a dev test deployment for a PaaS application that you're developing. What happens is that this one gives you guidelines on how you can set up a dev, test, and production environment, and how you can automate most of it. All of this is there. I'll add the links to the slides so that you can see these. There's a whole bunch of architectures or reference architectures that you can use for different solutions. So if you are providing a solution to an organization, this is the first place that you have to come and take a look at the different types of architectures that are available, and then use this as a reference for your application that you're developing. Okay. Now, if you look at this one, you would see that there is nothing here in the form of disaster recovery or high availability. So if you are running an on-premise solution for data, for the database, you would have HA or high availability or DR, disaster recovery setup. It will be there on your architecture, but you don't find that here. Why? Because behind the scenes, Azure takes care of those things. Most of these things are flicks of switches and certain configurations. Okay? So application development is made much easier, so you don't have to worry about how you have these data servers configured. Okay? And then you have another example for a simple branded website, how you can use Azure. Again, here you don't see anything to do with HA and DR, which is one of the most important things when you have application development scenarios. Okay. Any questions here? Okay. So now we are talking about data and BI, right? So this is some of the boring stuff when it comes to data, because doing data work in an application development scenario it's a bit boring. Right? You will agree with me, right? It's just saving data in a database. Of course, there is a lot of things that you need to consider, such as performance and all of that, but then it's just saving data to a database and bringing it back out onto your application, something like that. Okay? The more interesting stuff in analytics. Okay. Analytics is one of the biggest case studies for data, and we have a whole bunch of architectures for this, and analytics is done in a much bigger way now than 5 years, and even much bigger way than 10 years ago. 10 years ago, when we did analytics, it was SQL Server, SQL Server, SQL Server. You would have, if it's a Microsoft scenario, okay, then you will have integration services, SQL Server database, and then analysis services and reporting services. That will be the same thing over and over again. It worked for some people. It used to work for the requirements of that time, but now things have changed. There are lots of different requirements that people want in analytics, or different types of analytics that people want. So for that, there are so many different types of architectures that are there. Okay. The most popular one, or the most used one, is the modern data warehouse. So the modern data warehouse is not an actual data warehouse. If you have been doing analytics, you know a data warehouse is a repository, a database, where you have data coming in from multiple different systems, collated and transformed, and you have tables in the form of a star schema. But a modern data warehouse is not that. It's an architecture. Okay? And it doesn't have to be exactly like this. Okay? So now if you take a look at this, first up you have different types there. You have two types of data sources. And then you have Azure Data Factory. So what you're doing here is that you are bringing in different modules, different services of Azure, bringing them together to perform a specific task. Okay? Now, a modern data warehouse is an analytics scenario where you have transactional data that you're used to, the same type of data that you're used to 10, 15 years ago. And you also have big data. You have streaming data. You have, and you have media, which is, again, can be categorized under big data for different types of data. Okay? So what you do here is, from all of these different types of systems and data sources that you have, you bring in data using, you need to ingest it. So you don't do a transformation like you did in the old days. There is no ETL first up. The first thing that you used to do those days was extract, transform, and load. But here, you are bringing in much bigger sets of data, and you don't know exactly what the requirement is. Okay, but here, what happens is that in the modern data warehouse architecture, we work on the principle of data is valuable, or all data is valuable. So if all data is valuable, what is the first thing that you do? You bring in all of the data into your system. So that is what we do here. We ingest the data. We don't transform. We just bring it as it is and dump it somewhere. Okay, so that's what Data Factory does. A Data Factory is a service on Azure. It is not the same as SSIS. What it does is it just brings data. We can configure it to bring in data from different sources. Big data, media, streaming data. We can use for streaming data, we use a different service. But big data, media, transactional data, everything can be just brought in and dumped. And where do we dump it? In a storage. So we use something called Azure Blob Storage as how it is described in this architecture. But we can use other services as well. That is the beauty of Azure. You don't have to use Azure Blob Storage only. You can use something like Azure Data Lake, which is built using the Azure Blob Storage technology and made much better. So what happens is this architecture came out about a year ago or a year and a half ago. But now we have, at that time, they did not have Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Azure Data Lake Gen 2 is built on top of Azure Blob Storage, and it is optimized for analytics scenarios. Okay? So what you can do is you use this as a reference architecture, but use the technologies that you would like to use depending on the requirements, depending on the size of the data, and so forth. Okay, so you bring the data, store it, ingest it into your data store as it is. And then what you need to do is, when a requirement comes up, such as you want to do some sales analytics, then what you will do is you will take the data relevant to sales only from your data storage, transform it, and put it somewhere. So that's what's happening here. You're using Azure Databricks. So Azure Databricks is a Spark-based service which is used, which can be programmed using Python or Scala or even SQL to transform data into an analytical format and store it somewhere else. But then again, you don't have to use Azure Databricks here. You can use SSIS on top of Azure Data Factory. Or you can even use Azure SQL Database and use stored procedures if necessary. Okay? So here we use extract or ingest, store, and then transform when necessary, and you will put that into a data warehouse. Now, this Azure SQL Data Warehouse is another technology which is purpose-built to have your transactional type data warehouses that you had 10, 15 years ago. Okay, and from that, you can create cubes. You know what cubes are, right? Cubes are semantic models, business models, or business analytics models, where you'll have measures such as sales amount, sales quantity, gross profit margin, net profit, and all of those things. And you have dimensions to analyze that with, such as product dimension, calendar dimension, and things like that. Those things will come in your analysis services. Okay, and then using Power BI, you can visualize that. Okay, so now what happens is that let me just bring that here. My mouse doesn't seem to work. Over here, Azure SQL Data Warehouse. This is where you have the your fact tables and things like that. It doesn't need be that you use Azure SQL Data Warehouse. You can use Azure SQL Database instead of that, because Azure SQL Data Warehouse is built for very large amounts of data, TBs and TBs of data, not for GBs of data. So when it comes to GBs of data, you can use Azure SQL Database because the cost is cheaper and it has more performance when it comes to smaller data sets. Okay? So now this is a standard that we can use. It runs on the ELT, not ETL. Extract, load, and then transform when required. Okay. So now one thing that we learned is that we can switch technologies as we want. As your data grows, then you can switch from Azure SQL Database to Azure SQL Data Warehouse when you need it. Okay. Right. And then you have an advanced analytics on big data scenario. Now what happens here is that you need to have some advanced analytics such as predictions and things like that. And that predictions need to go quickly to a device. Let's say a healthcare scenario where data is captured and quickly we need to figure out after processing whether this person is going to have a heart attack or not. Right? And then, I wasn't looking at you, sorry. And then quickly send a message to that person's mobile phone saying that you are likely to get a heart attack. Right? So for that, you need to have something like Cosmos DB, which will work very quickly. So what you're doing here is that you're plugging in technology which can be used for that particular scenario. And you're extending. Now, this is just an extension of the previous one. See, you're just adding one more step to it. So this is the beauty of Azure. As and when needed, when the need arises, you can add more things into it, more technologies for new types of requirements. Whereas in on-premises, you would have already invested on SQL Server, and certain things you may not be able to do with SQL Server. Then what are you going to do? Okay, but you invested so much of money, and the company will not want to give you more money, right? Right, and then extending this further, this is something called a Lambda architecture when you need to bring in streaming data. So the same architecture is once again extended when streaming data from IoT devices and edge devices has to be brought in, and when you need to do real-time analytics. So the previous one is there, but there's another step for real-time analytics. So like this, you don't need to go deep into this. All of this is there on the Microsoft architecture side, but just to explain how you can keep on expanding as the need grows, as when data increases. Okay? So lessons learned is this: start small. For core requirements, you start small. You can even start with one Azure SQL database and Power BI, and that's enough. You don't have to spend too much, right? But you need to choose the right tools. You don't start off with Azure SQL Data Warehouse when you have 2 GB of data, because it's going to cost you so much of money, and you're going to have a lot of performance issues. So choose the right tools using the reference architecture. It doesn't have to use the same technologies mentioned in the reference architecture. It's only for reference. Okay? And then as the value is seen by the organization, we expand. When they see a value and they say, okay, bring in all of this data from the last 20 years into this, then we can say, okay, good, we'll bring in all of that data and we'll use Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Okay? And sometimes they may not see value in something and say, okay, we don't want this, we're not getting value. Then you can just get rid of it. And you're saving money, unlike on-premises. Okay? And you need to build your technology competency. Azure keeps growing, new things keep getting added. Okay, so you need to build a team, your technology competency should be built continuously. Okay, and another word of advice is that you have to work closely with Microsoft. Microsoft of today is not like the Microsoft of 5-10 years ago. Okay, they work with you closely and they want you to exceed, to excel in your business. So they will help you out. And we've seen that. The way they help us out is much better than 5-10 years ago. Okay, any questions here? So I need to stop right now. So this is about me. Please rate my talk by scanning that barcode. If you need to talk to me more about analytics and architectures, please talk to me afterwards. I need to do a hard stop right now. Okay, if you have any questions, please come and talk to me. I have one question here. You need to put your hands up and I'll write your name down. Next speaker can come and set up. Who's next speaker here? What is the name of, you need to put your hands up. What is the name of the architecture that supports all data is valuable? The concept of all data is valuable. Which architecture supports that? So if you give that answer, I can put you in for the prize. Yeah, your hand came up first, sorry. Reference architecture, okay, let's go to somebody else. Yours came next. Okay, modern data warehouse, that's what I was looking for, modern data warehouse. Just stay back and I'll take your name down. Okay, so thank you very much. The next speaker can come and set up.